So let's start with that question. How has Benjamin Netanyahu managed to convince those far-right ministers that this is the right deal at the right time? Because some of them, they want the war to continue.
You know, Adnan, he was preparing for this for a while. I mean, the minute he brought Sa'ar and his group to the government, he basically became aware that his government will not collapse, even if those Smotrich and Ben-Gvir decided to actually leave the government. The government will not collapse. The second issue, he is also confident that both of them, they want to remain in the government to achieve their ideological plan, which basically a more settlement in West Bank. So he knows their weakness, and he played on that. And for that reason, you saw them talking a lot in the last few hours, and they criticizing and saying that, you know, we are basically defeated in front of Hamas. But the main position is they will not withdraw from the government. They will still remain. They will remain in the government, and that's what Netanyahu wants at the moment.
What are the details that are missing that you're particularly looking out for?
When it comes to the deal, you mean, Adnan?
Yes, correct. Because we know some of it, but there are details missing. And you as an expert must be looking at very particular details.
I think there are a few points that facilitate this deal and also will help maybe help this deal to survive. The first one is actually the serious, I would say, failure, the military failure of Israel in the last 5 months in Jabalia and other places northern Gaza. There is a huge failure admitted by the military leaders within the Israeli army. In addition to the other studies in different in Europe, in America, they identify that weakness and they identify basically the Israeli army is not doing well in that. The second one is the division between the government, the political level, and the military, and that was a pressure on Netanyahu. And most important is actually Trump. Trump himself is an unpredictable politician, and he was to put more pressure on Netanyahu. Now, all of this together makes it easy. First of all, that Israeli gave up on Netzarim, gave up on basically Philadelphia, and they gave up on people returning to northern Gaza, and also they gave a hope that the war might end on the second phase. And all of those together, basically those details together facilitate the deal. And finally, the pressure from the world when it comes to the humanitarian side. There is a huge anger now, even in America, in Europe, about the humanitarian scene in Gaza. And if you see some of what's been spread on social media about Los Angeles and the comparison made by Los Angeles and Gaza, that itself is becoming a fuel for a lot to criticize American foreign policy and push the current administration and the one comes next Monday to do something. And for all of this together, I think the deal might be, announced today or tomorrow.
I'll ask you about Hamas in a moment, Mahjoob, but considering your mention of Donald Trump, when we heard the news conference in Doha about an hour and a half ago, and increasingly analysts seem to be saying this is actually Trump's achievement and not Joe Biden's. Do you think Donald Trump has promised something to Benjamin Netanyahu that will become clear in the future? Maybe, you mentioned the occupied West Bank, maybe allowing Israel to build more illegal settlements in those areas?
I think, as I described, agreeing with others that Trump is unpredictable. I think he not necessarily promised. Trump came with the agenda of so-called domestic politics, American domestic politics. He is expected to announce 100 executive order in the first 100 days or less. So basically, his agenda is for the first 6 months is an American pure agenda, and that itself will not happen if Lebanon cannot be solved, if Palestinian issue cannot be solved. So the determination of his team is to solve the Gaza, Lebanon, and when it comes to Syria as well, so he can focus on the domestic politics. The other, I think he is also not keen to continue in the war. For psychological reason, he, even in the first term, he did not act militarily, but 2 or 3 times, one in Yemen and the killing of Qasem Soleimani and the third incident. So psychologically, he's not in favor of war. And that itself maybe also contributed to put more pressure on Netanyahu. And I think the fourth reason is actually the American hostages, because he wanted to start his presidency by saying, I am the person who released the American hostages, not Biden.
Yeah. We don't know what the deal says about who will govern Gaza in the future, because, of course, Hamas would like to be in control. The people have voted for Hamas, but why would Israel allow a group that has attacked and killed its citizens to continue ruling in a territory which borders its own?
Actually, Hamas did announce that they welcome anybody to manage and provide service to Gazan people. They don't want to be completely in charge. And that itself announced, and they welcomed any kind of collaboration with the Palestinian Authority, having a council to run the Gaza. The problem with the other parties. But the major point, Adnan, here is actually how come this issue is being forgotten overnight and it's no longer on the table, even when it comes to the mediation, to the negotiation now. Israelis have failed even to impose a body to govern Gaza. And we remember the statement made by the Israeli government, the Israeli prime minister, that no, the war will not stop unless they decide the day after. Now, no one knows the day after, but one thing, that Hamas will remain in power.
Mahjoob, I'm just going to end by thanking you and just saying that Hamas has released a statement saying that it's hopeful that the Gaza truce talks in Doha lead to a clear and comprehensive agreement. Mahjoob, thank you so much for the analysis.